And I think today, with all the uncertainties, just relying on the private sector, I think we're just not going to get there, to be very frank with you.
There's certainly consumerism that drives global trade, but then there's also the consumers who will demand that there is green global trade. The EU is really leading the way with the EU ETS and EU fuel. But how is that going to change the way the industry operates when the IMO is not making this a global policy?
It's another factor that is going to make things a lot more complex going forward. And I think shipping, in a way, people might not like what I say, but it's been a very simple kind of industry in the end of the day, right? There was only a few factors. It was globally regulated, and the minimum standards were, you could argue, probably not that high. That is now changing. And now you get things like the ETS. And to be honest, for a company like ours, we welcome it. First of all, because I think it at least gets us on a path of putting a price on carbon, which we all know that is needed to get through the transition. But also for a company like ours, with the capabilities that we have, we are probably the ones that are best positioned to deal with this complexity. So also from that point of view, it sets us a little bit apart from some of our competitors, where in a very simple industry, it's very difficult to differentiate yourself. But if you start talking about pricing carbon and trying to avoid carbon, well, that is not something I think that every single company has the resources to do. So that is also something that we are looking at very much. But it's clearly going to have impact. It's going to have impact on where certain ships will end up. It will probably have some, over time, have influences on what products will get moved around the world. So I think the industry is not just going to see an increased cost of moving things around, but I think it will also change very much the way the business is run going forward.
If we think of shipping, as Jan says, as a simple institution that has complex demands put upon it, we may get a glimpse into the challenges the industry faces moving forward. Navigating to zero is not straightforward. We're not going to get there overnight, and we will make some mistakes along the way. So what are we missing? What should the industry be paying attention to as potential ways to solve these complex problems?
I think on the zero carbon fuels, there is still the question on the fuel availability. I think that is still something that is not 100% clear. It's also the pricing. It's also how does this somehow link to the other industries? Because I think we do need to realize as an industry that we're not decarbonizing in a vacuum. We are decarbonizing with the rest of the world and fighting for the same solution somehow. There's a lot of uncertainty there. So I think that is still not very, very clear. If we would have a clearer pathway on the price on carbon or whatever regulation there might be on minimum standards, I think that would make the industry a lot more investable, because if you're an owner today, you're basically making a decision on something that you think that might happen or might stick, but the regulator is still not really helping you in that respect. So I think that piece on the regulator now having to follow, I think it's a very important next piece in the puzzle to getting to zero in this industry.
And you've talked about the advantages of owners or what they have to do, but do you see there's particular advantages that you have as a ship operator and a commodity owner as well?
The advantage we have is clearly our size, right? And we use our size, to somehow influence minimum standards, which we think is important, and that's something we can do. And